A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive:
the world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure: murder. From the twisted mind of Shawn C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadowplay in Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. I am Shawn, and with me today, Pat O'Malley, filmmaker, author of the comic book Popscars, and just all around, the few times I've talked to you, Pat, you're a great guy. And I remember meeting you at the Comic Bug in, I think, was that 2020?
It was 2022. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. Isn't that funny?
It is, because
a while now.
But it like does and doesn't seem, it's like we've come through the other side of the whole pandemic, and that everybody knows it just completely like obliterated time. I moved across country last August. That has also made it difficult for me because it makes because that would have been what, like last March when you were signing the first two issues of Popscars at the Comic Bug?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's probably because the Sumerian edition came out in March, so I think it was like about a year.
Wow. So, okay, that's super cool. So first, let me tell the people at home. So Popscars. So I met you at the Comic Bug, and you had the first two issues you had published through your company, Punch Publishing.
Yes, that's right.
And both just, by the way, absolutely. I mean, the minute you look at this book, I'll put images on the YouTube version of this and stuff, and I'll post some stuff on Instagram. But I mean, the minute you look at it, it's like, what's this? So
thank you.
It's just designed very well, and I like, oh man, it's the tactile,
I wanted to stand out. I wanted to, I know what it's like going to a comic shop and looking at the shelves, and you have 1,000 choices. So like, I just wanted to give it that little bit of edge. Maybe it would catch your eye. Maybe it would like hit that light and reflect or something. And maybe Pinky, would like catch your attention, and you just need to see a little bit more, Santi did an amazing job on the cover.
So talk about that. So your artist, Santi Guian? Guian. Oh, like Ozzy Guian. See, I always overthink things when pronunciation is involved.
He lives in Argentina.
How did you hook up?
So I started writing Popscars in 2017, actually, in this notepad right here.
Oh, that's awesome. So Pat is holding up a notepad that has literally, like, you've drawn a basic roughing out of frames and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a legal pad, and like this is kind of I was doing this like in between shooting. So I was working on a TV show, and in between like doing the shoots and the live stuff, I'd go in the back and I would just write on this pad. And at the time I really didn't like my job, and it was in Hollywood. It was on Hollywood Boulevard. I was going to Hollywood every day at like 5:30 in the morning.
Oh,
and
Christ.
I just started to like really resent everything about the industry, this place, the people, and it started to filter through into Popscars. But at that point, I'd already been making a short film, and the short film was set in Hollywood, and it's very different. But the short film is what led to Popscars. The short film's called Pop, and it was about just this. There's no dialogue. It's all music. and it's just kind of about this guy spiraling in Hollywood. He's just kind of going out of control. And there's the thumbtack drug and Mary. There's only a few little elements that the short film had that I kind of just needed to expand more. So they fell into the comic book. But the comic is definitely Pinky's story. They just kind of helped me expand the world of Popscars. So I was working on the show, writing this story, and I didn't know how to make a comic book. I've always loved comics. I grew up on comics. But I moved out to LA to make movies. I wanted to be a director, a filmmaker. And, I've made like 20 short films, but I've never broken through. I've never figured it out, and, I knew that comics were being adapted, and I never set out to do this to get adapted in anything. I set out to make like a badass comic and just, get my story out the way I thought I could, like the best possible way. So I had to figure out how to make a comic book, and it took me like 3 years to find an editor, Bill, who would hold my hand, teach me the process, and just guide me through and kind of show me like, this is how you do a book. This is why you put certain things here. And he kind of helped me rewrite it. Like he showed me the comic book format, because the way I wrote it was very strange. I did break it up into panels, but it was just kind of awkward and clunky. So I kind of revised it. And with his help, we made a post on Facebook. There's like a lot of great Facebook groups that connect writers and artists and comic writers and all that stuff. And we got like 100 submissions. And
Wow.
Santi was like one of 3 that we just like, we're like, okay, this would be a good fit. And kind of after just kind of reaching out to him, he just is such a sweet person. And I think he got it. I think he got what I was trying to do. And I was really nervous. I didn't know what the book should look like. And then we picked him. And when he showed me that cover, I just was like, oh my gosh, this is like perfect. It's like, so like he somehow managed to capture everything in that first cover. And I kind of we just built off that,
That
the street cover with Pinky, and like, it felt just right. The grit of Hollywood, some of the background characters. And then I just felt like we just kept building our relationship, and, we kept doing issues. And I feel like we kind of took some chances. In the first issue, Santi does everything: pencils, inks, colors. But we found that process took like a year to do one issue. So I was like, okay, we need to shift some workload off you. And we found a colorist. They were just working on a book on Facebook as well. I found them on Facebook. And I just was jealous of how cool the colors were of this book. It's called Killtopia. And I reached out to the colorist, N.L. Ashworth. They go by Lou. And Lou was just like so incredible just to dive in and not only take Santi's colors that he kind of built the first issue, but they just made them better and expanded them, and it changed our view of the world and where we could go. So then the third issue, I think we kept kind of expanding the style and kind of playing around. The third issue kind of is a little grittier.
Yeah.
Then I think we find our stride. All of us as a team, I think we find our stride in 4, 5, and 6. Like those issues, I think are like a very tight, like trio of issues. And my favorite being number 5. I think we all kind of just like nailed our roles. And it just felt like, it's like, to me, that's our perfect issue. I love what that one's doing. So that's kind of how Santi and I got involved and kind of grew and helped each other. And he's added so much. He added the ponytail to Pinky. My design, I designed all the characters because I draw, and I tried to draw this on my own with a couple friends who aren't comic artists, but they're artists. And we just found it to be so difficult. A comic artist is a true like skill set.
Yeah. So the 1 and 2 I have, you released through Punch, and so now Sumerian is releasing it.
Mhm.
Sumerian used to be Behemoth, right? I believe.
So Behemoth was was the first company that I kind of was talking to about Popscars back when I was doing the Kickstarter. And in that time, they got picked up by Sumerian, which is also a record company.
Yeah.
So the record company wanted to expand, and they wanted, to invest in comics and get into that kind of creative enterprise. So Behemoth became Sumerian, and I think now you're going to see a lot of really cool stuff from them involving bands. They're going to be doing like comics with bands, and I think some really cool movie properties.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so yeah, they're on their way up and up for sure.
They did. So I think the first thing I became aware of with Behemoth was Irish writer Andy Levy's Osaka Mime, which is a pretty cool graphic novel. Came out, read it, really liked it. Interviewed him on the old show, the one I originally was going to have you on, A Most Horrible Library. And then
Oh, okay.
after that, it was like in rapid succession. They had a one shot for a film called Spare Parts that I liked the film, and I was like, oh, there's a comic. And then but then and they did Turbo Kid. They had like a couple issues of a Turbo Kid comic. So I was like, oh, and then they
That's right.
disappeared. And then
Yeah.
so now I find out this is why, because Sumerian basically, uh bought them, or what, however you want to say, partnered with them, turned it into Sumerian Comics. And I know their website's under construction, and they're about to, or it was the last I checked, they're about to launch like a lot of big stuff, like you said. So how exciting that you're part of that.
Yeah, it's very cool, man. I mean, this is my first comic too, so I'm just psyched to be getting this out with their help, the reach they have. Um, it's just cool. I mean, Popscars is showing up in like London, Canada, Australia, and to me that's a trip. Yeah, you know. Um,
Yeah, it's got to be a good
but
feeling.
it is, yeah. I'm like still apprehensive about like totally celebrating, because I'm like I want to get the book out completely, and just make sure we don't like screw anything up on my end.
Oh,
But
dude,
it's good. I think
you'll be fine. You're telling me that 4, 5, and 6 are like a hat trick of like
you
dialing it
that
in and nailing it.
I think they are, but like until it's like on the shelves, I'm so like cautious to be like partying.
Understandable.
I'm like
Yeah.
so like reserved about. Okay, yeah, I hope it goes well. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really rad. And man, we have some really cool. The graphic novel cover is just so sick, and that hasn't been released yet. But Robert Samelin, who does a lot of artwork for like vinyls. It might be waxwork.
Oh,
It might be I don't know if it's Mondo, it might be waxwork, but he does some like awesome vinyl art. And he's done a comic called Callie for Dark Horse. I just love his artwork so much. And he did a cover for us on issue 1. It's like purple, and it's like a 3D style of Pinky.
mhm,
It's just like so sick. But
nice.
his the graphic novel cover is really exciting. I'm excited to drop that.
So for people at home, so I picked up uh 3 weeks ago. So 4 comes out this coming. So I'm gonna drop this probably. I'm gonna probably try to drop it this weekend. I usually drop on Monday, but I want to give people enough heads up so that they go into their comic shops on Wednesday and can ask for it by name. But so that 3 comes out this coming Wednesday. The what would that be?
Yeah,
The
four comes out the is it
28th. 4
28th?
comes out the
Yeah.
28th.
Yeah.
And then 5 and 6 the next 2 consecutive months, correct?
Right. And then I think we'll take a month off, and then I think the graphic novel comes out in October.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect for Halloween. I'm a big Halloween fan, so it's be
Same.
fun to drop a book.
Let me ask you, is there anything different about 1 and 2 that Sumerian put out as opposed to the ones that I have? Because I didn't pick them up because I had them, but then I was like thinking today, like I wonder if there's anything. I mean, I'm sure you probably added some bonus material or something, but story wise,
No,
content
actually,
wise.
they're the almost the exact same. There's a couple little tweaks in some of the lettering, some of the bubbles, like the positioning.
Okay.
But no lines were changed, no lines were added, no art was changed. Um, I think the Kickstarter stuff, there's a lot more bonus stuff. I think the just because of the page counts, I
Hmm.
think the Sumerian ones, I get 22 pages, and then you kind of get the ad in the back and the cover for next week. But the Kickstarter ones I tried to make special. I tried to put in a lot of like, there's character bios, there's some art, some like cool stuff about the short film. I just wanted to give the people some like part of the experience of me making it more with the Kickstarter thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh yeah, that's right. There is the page about Pop. So did Pop the short film? It is because I watched everything on your YouTube channel over the last
Yeah.
like 48 hours. And Pop is not on there, correct? It's just
No,
the
no. That's more for kids. I want to make I was making kids horror films,
okay.
and I had like one just explode, and I was like, oh wow, YouTube is a thing. I could make money off like making little horror films. And so I made a couple, but really it was like it's one video that kind of like blew up major.
What was the video that
Uh,
blew up?
Pool Shark.
I knew it. Dude,
It has,
I really liked all of them, but I really like Pool Shark. Like
yeah, that was hard. That was so hard.
it had to be. There were so many questions I was going to ask you, and I noticed the credits. I was like, oh, this is like you came loaded for bear. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah. I mean, I never made it for YouTube though. I'm like a film festival. I'm like a film festival guy. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this movie for film festivals. And it won a film festival. It won like the San Diego Kids Film Festival. Um, but then I was like, well, what do I do with it now? And I put it on YouTube, and it just like caught fire. And I think now it's up to like 95 million views, which is
Holy
like
shit!
I
I
can't
watched it. I didn't even look at the view count.
I can't even fathom like what that number is. You know what I mean? It's too big. And my mom is in the end of it. So we always joke that like, 95 million people saw my mom act and stuff like that. It's just funny. Uh, but yeah, that was a crazy experience getting that shark, finding the shark. And once I found the shark, that was like, oh man, now I have to make this. Cause like I was kind of on the fence about doing it. I was like, yeah, this is a fun idea. It reminds me of like me and my sister in the pool playing when we were kids. Um, but then when I found that shark, I was like, oh no, like I have to go get this and make this now. Uh, and somehow the stars aligned and it worked out. But that was so hard to do.
I mean, just like the way that you shot. So I'll put a link to your YouTube channel
Okay.
in the show notes. But this film, it's like 4 minutes long and some change or something like that, I think. And
Yeah.
it's two kids. Well, it starts with the like a 7, 8 year old kid on a raft in an in-ground pool, and there's a shark. And he tries to convince his sister, also right around the same age, that there's a shark. She doesn't believe him at first because he has dunked her or whatever. And then at some point, they're both in the pool on the rafts, trying to stay away from the shark. And the way that you shot the shark underwater, the first couple times, I was like, is this like stock? I couldn't tell. I'm like, is this stock footage of a shark? And then, like, at some point, I'm like, oh, wait, no, this is like,
Yeah.
is this animatronic? And I'm like, the the way that he defeats the shark, I won't say anything. I laughed out loud, and also I was like, dude, that's the movie magic right there, Pat, because I didn't know what I was looking at for a large part of the time that was on screen. So you shot it just right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Cause oh man, that kind of like, once I made that film, then I got that job at the TV show. I kind of knew I was about to get this job. So I was like, okay, I got to do something with like creatively before I get this full-time job where I'm going to just like have no time. So I just like threw everything I had into it. And, yeah, the shark. Oh my God. I only had everybody for one day. So that was so hard. And I ended up having to do like 12 pickup days just to like piece it together. That was like it was crazy, man. It was a crazy movie. But I love it, and it helped me make Popscars. Like I wouldn't have made Popscars without doing that. And that's why there's a shark in Popscars. Why he made a shark movie. I felt like because I did it, I'm allowed to do that. You know.
I was gonna ask, like, which came first. Yeah, because as I'm watching that, I'm like, wait a minute, the swamp shark.
Yeah, man, I love Swamp Shark, but it definitely Bull Shark was the driving force behind that.
So, is the short film Pop available anywhere?
It is. It's on Vimeo. I will.
Okay,
I'll hook you up with the link,
okay,
and it's kind of a more. It's experimental for sure. It's
that's fine.
like 13 minutes. I shot it. I scored it. I edited it. I made it over 6 years with some friends, and to me, it's like a documentary about my friends, but not in a way that like they all love each other. The movie pits it a different way, but it was just like it's funny to see all these different moments that we captured, and I go back to like little sparks of like, hey, I have an idea. Can we get together at this parking garage and shoot a scene? And it was just like all guerrilla style filmmaking, and I just had so much fun doing it. It was almost like I couldn't let go of it. So that's why Pop Scars happened. Kind of, I couldn't let go of the world and stuff like that. But wow, we did some crazy stuff in that one. I remember we did like some drone stuff on Hollywood Boulevard at like 5 in the morning.
Oh wow.
We climbed like a fire escape. I just wanted to get cool shots, and I think when you see it, you'll see that it has a really interesting style. And I think there's a way that you could translate that to a feature film of Pop Scars where it has some of the similar vibe, where it's kind of dirty, it's not perfect, the camera work is not perfect, like it's sloppy, out of focus, and it's not so it doesn't cut, nothing is you kind of have to like wander and find it, and I think that's really a cool kind of vibe.
I agree. I mean, I think that works, and I love the gorilla idea. I mean, so I've shot some like very very short stuff, mainly like years ago. But it's so funny when you said it took you 6 years. I have gathered an amalgamation of shots that were just like, I'm in a place and like this is interesting, and it's like there was needed to be an overarching theme, and I kind of came up with that after I moved, and so I have like, it's like you said, you call your friends, I got this idea for a parking garage. It's like a similar kind of thing where it's like, hey, can we go to your cabin this weekend, and I need like 5 hours to get 2 shots, whatever. But I really like films. I mean, I like movies in general, but one of my favorite movies is Harmony Korine's Gummo. And that movie, it's like, it is what it is. There's not a lot of scenes that are, like you said, it's not edited to perfection. There's a stream of consciousness freeform to it that is so inspiring to me. And it kind of let me know, like, no, film, it doesn't just have to be Save the Cat. It can be other things as well.
Yeah, that's totally. I'm not into the whole like strict structure stuff. I really just kind of just like I just can't get into it. It turns me off. I don't like when I can predict something. If I can write the movie as I'm watching it, I don't like it. I want to be like swept away and get lost in it, So Gummo, I remember watching that so long ago. I think it has a feeling to it that kind of makes you feel like you have a fever, or
Yeah.
like you're kind of sick, like certain movies have that quality where it like is a physical
Yep.
feeling to
Reaction.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely does. There's a lot of I mean, I always say there's not many people I've shown it to that like it, but I mean, and not because my taste is so refined, just because
No, it's a hard movie.
I think it's one of the most beautiful movies at times and one of the ugliest. So you get like, it's just such a weird push-pull, but that's what makes it the movie. And you can't have the one without the other. And it's like, well, thus is life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the regimented. I mean, I do feel like there's an art to doing something that is like Save the Cat. I used to think like, oh, fuck that completely. It's difficult to do. Um,
Yeah, it is.
but at the same time, I mean, I've been a David Lynch fan for more of my life. I'm 47. I've been a David Lynch fan since I was like 15 or 16 because of Twin Peaks, and
Yeah.
that's just in me. I'm okay with,
You're okay with going somewhere. If he wants to
yep,
take me somewhere, I'm like open to it. Like
yeah,
where are we going? Yeah, like I appreciate him a lot too. He's an interesting guy. I did his like master class. Do you remember those like ads for master class?
yeah. How
So I
was
did
that?
like it was just really interesting, the way he like breaks down. I wish I could remember more of it off the top of my head, but I remember the thing he emphasized most was like trying to find like the truth in something, even if it's surreal and abstract, like finding like how like the trueness of something, and like whatever that it means to him is like the essential kernel to how he makes stuff. And I don't know, just something I like sometimes will think of, like, what is this true? Am I being like true with this subject matter? Am I kind of phoning it in? Am I missing
Mm-hmm.
something? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just he's an interesting guy, man. Out in LA, he does like the morning weather, which is always
Yeah.
like a fun to listen to.
Yeah. That's one. I mean, I could still listen to it because of the internet, but that's one thing I miss about LA is just stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, David Lynch does the weather.
Isn't that so cool? Yeah, and then
It's very cool.
like Henry Rollins has like a Saturday night radio show. It's just like, oh, awesome.
I was literally, it's funny. I was in LA for 2 weeks in March and for work, and a friend of mine, we went to see a movie at the Los Feliz 3, and on the way back, Rollins comes on. And so I listened to him religiously for years. Then he moved from Saturday to Sunday, and it just killed it for me because I was like, I can't work it in the same way. And then so he's back on Saturdays. I found out in this just a couple months ago. I was like, oh shit. And then my buddy's like, dude, just get the it's not KXLU. What is the it's
KCRW.
KCRW. He's like, just get
Yeah.
the app. You can listen to it whenever you want, listen to it Saturday, whatever.
And he does all his playlists. He puts it all online. It's just like it's almost too much. It's almost too much. Like I like to listen to it live, so I'm not like, because I could get just like every single
Oh,
band he plays, I could go down a rabbit hole with.
yeah, it's LA. In LA, it's him on Saturday nights, and I don't, on KXLU, Michael's, I forget if it's Stock or Stork, but he does the part-time punk show 3 to 6 on Thursdays. Those guys, it's like just have your Shazam ready because every fucking song, if I don't know it, I
Yeah, I
want to
know.
know it.
It's I know. Yeah, he plays the best stuff, and it's like, oh man, all these gems of like either bands I love or like want to love.
Yeah, he's impressive. Uh, okay, but I'm sorry. I think I veered us away. So
No, no, it's good. I'm glad to hear.
with Popscars, so where did the idea? Pinky is such an icon. I mean, just some characters you look at and it's like iconic. The minute you see it, iconic. And that's how I
Yeah.
feel. I saw you have an action figure, like a limited edition action figure coming out, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I love toys. I have like so many toys. And
As do I.
yeah, I'm crazy about them. But once I found out that I could start making my own with like through Instagram people, because there's like so many talented people on Instagram doing like such cool stuff with
Mm-hmm.
toys and everything that I love. So I just reach out to people, and I linked up with someone who's just like incredible. He lives in Australia. His Instagram is Two Brothers 1979, and man, he does the coolest toys. Some of his toys come in like VHS cases.
Oh,
So the way I kind of linked up with him was like, hey, will you make me like a Clockwork Orange VHS toy? I'm gonna grab it so I could show you.
yeah, yeah,
And
please. I'd love to see it.
I was like, can you also make me an Evil Dead one? And then one year, I think it was maybe last year, 2 years ago, my sister reached out to him and got me a Pinky toy in a VHS, in a Swamp Shark VHS case, as like a Christmas present. And it was just like the coolest Christmas present. But at the same time, I had him make all of our dogs as toys, and I put him in a Reservoir Dogs VHS case, and all the
Oh,
dogs are
that
on the
is.
cover. I'm
That's
gonna grab
awesome.
some stuff and show you really quick.
Yeah, please, please.
So I know we want to get back to Pinky, but I just want to plug this dude because he's just like
Please,
the
please,
best.
please do.
So how
Oh,
sick is this? Like it's
dude,
like a VHS case, and then bam,
dude. Holy
Alex.
cow.
So I just am obsessed with these, and so he's doing a run of Pinky toys with me. We're gonna be doing so we're using this design,
That's awesome.
which is just like incredible.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So yeah, they even use pictures from the comic on the back. How cool is that? So we're doing 6 variants of Pinky, and every toy has a different artist doing the card backs,
Oh,
and they're all
wow.
artists that I just like love on Instagram that I just like reached out to, and I did so many variant covers, and I wish I could have done more, but uh, I ended up trying to use some people for these toys that I wasn't able to work with. So 6 variants, and she has 6 different weapons in each one,
Oh,
and all the
wow.
weapons are kind of in different issues. So like one is her bat, one is the weapon that is used at the end of issue 2, one is a gun,
My
one is so so he made this like tiny little like 3D printed and it's just incredible. So I'm gonna be putting these toys out on a website soon, I hope. But yeah, I'm super into the figures, and I hope we keep making. I would love to do like more characters and stuff. But these are gonna be fun. I think they'll come out in maybe like a month or two.
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh
Um,
my God.
but Pinky, man, she is iconic, and I feel like super lucky to have like put her out. Just because I feel like that's one that somebody else could have done before me, and so I started sketching Spider-Man one day in high heels, and it's really dirty. It's a dirty sketch, like Ralph Steadman kind of style, and something about that really stuck with me,
That
and
explains this
like
opening page so much. So
yeah,
much.
yeah. So like once I kind of got away from Spider-Man and kind of saw what that character could be on her own. And I found the pink mask and the corset and stuff like that. I just knew that she was just like so badass. Who is this character? And how could I tell a story that would suit her? Why is she wearing this outfit? What got her there? So that was a lot of digging I had to do. But then once I added the characters in from Pop and the thumbtacks and Hollywood and all that stuff, it was just like it's like the puzzle pieces. They just like click together. And then once Santi got a hold of Pinky and put the ponytail on, I didn't like the ponytail, so that's why it gets ripped out in issue 2. But then
Hmm.
I decided that I did like it, so I bring it back.
Nice. Nice.
uh, but yeah, she just started taking on a life of her own, and like all that's why I did all these covers. I kind of want to keep putting her out there, keep having different artists show different interpretations of her, and I want her to be iconic. I think she's so cool. To me, she's like my. I mean, obviously, it's like someone I made up, but she's like my favorite like character. I love like, and I feel bad because her arc is emotional and it's hard. I put her through the ringer.
Hmm.
Uh, but she's tough. She can handle it. Like so, I do. I'm glad that she's mine, and I get to kind of have fun with her because she's just like sky's the limit. I think this first 6 issues of Popscars it's like the emotional arc for her, and I feel like hopefully I get to do more. Um, and I think once beyond that is where I think maybe the what you expect from the image is kind of what would happen. I
Okay.
think I think when you see Popscars and that image, you have an idea of what this is going to be. And then when you start to read it, I think I take it somewhere different.
You do 100%.
Yeah, I think it's very different than what you expect. And I think it's to me it's like a gory soap opera. And like that's cool. I like that. but I do think the audience probably anticipates something else. So I think once we get through this kind of 6 issues, I think then the Pinky that maybe you anticipated would show up. But I think she's still learning how to be that. So it's very much like her figuring this shit out as she goes, and it's sloppy, and she makes mistakes and screws up, and it's a mess. Revenge is messy. Revenge is never clean and easy. So, I think the biggest thing for me was letting the audience know the secret, but keeping the characters kind of guessing and trying to keep Harry and Pinky, not sure exactly what each other's intentions were,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's rereading it recently. Well, after getting 3, so reread 1, 2, and then into 3. I had forgotten, but like, it was a cool moment because there's a certain point where she does. It's not that she fucks up, but she kind of. Well, okay, it's the moment when Harry intercedes and basically pulls her out from in front of what she's about to do.
The taxi driver scene, yeah.
And she totally backs off, and you can see like, oh, this is great because this isn't the person I thought that it was going to be.
Yeah,
because she's not there yet.
She breaks character there, right? She's not so badass anymore. She's like on the defensive,
Yeah.
That was a hard scene. I call that the taxi driver scene because it's like I kind of always think of Travis Bickle with going up to that podium and then cutting back and forth to the podium, the crowd, the security guys. I always love that scene. So to me, I kind of modeled that Popscars scene off that, and it would help me like build that up to like a kind of a climax where then she gets yanked, and then the two of them kind of confront each other, and she kind of has to get back into that mode. She's so surprised to see him. Where she didn't expect him to be.
And then like also issue 2, shit goes pear-shaped for her. And then I really liked 3 where the cover, I believe the A cover. I remember thinking like, oh, okay, what's this? I guess I kind of immediately thought, okay, this is what we're seeing here is a metaphor. And like totally, it is definitely grittier, darker. But I like the way she has to kind of revisit her emotions and like why she's doing it. And it kind of goes back to the opening of the first issue. There's a splash page, her pulling her mask on, and then basically I'm going to kill my dad. And then there's the next page, there is a insert shot of her looking in the mirror holding her weapon, and then another kind of splash, and it's clearly Hollywood, and it's just exactly what it's captured perfectly, and it says, I'm going to burn this fucking place to the ground. So there's like, as when you were talking earlier about your kind of disillusionment after moving out there and working for a while, and like I don't know, I really like that. And so I like that in the character where she has to, in order to kind of get the strength to overcome the situation she's in because she's working from a deficit, she kind of revisits that rage and it empowers her. So I really liked that a lot. I thought that was great character.
Thank you. That's a really good like read of it. And yeah, I think in that issue we kind of push her like to that place.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you've crossed a line, and it's how are you going to deal with this? And I think part of her is, I think I see way down the line for her, and I see her becoming something she wouldn't even like because of where the actions in that issue take her. You know what I mean? Where it's almost become the thing you hate.
Which fits perfectly. That like, oh my God, that fits so because also it's like revenge, right? So it's like, how far do you go? And at some point, you cross a line, and it's like, it's a shorter distance to go where I intended than it is to go back. However, like maybe I should go back, but it's still, you're so close to what you want. So it's like, I don't know. That's really really interesting, and it makes me very excited, having just heard you say a little while ago that now the next three are kind of like rapid fire, like nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think I have the faith based on these first three issues that you guys are going to just, I don't know, just nail it, and it's going to be something to behold for sure.
I really do hope so, and I really tried to, like the Save the Cat stuff I don't love, but I'm aware of it, and
Yeah.
like I tried to make this. I use like the story circle when I kind of break stuff down. I the way I outline this book is like it's probably clinically insane if you actually look at how I outline this book, because it's across different notebooks. I drew out every frame of it myself, never shared it with Santi. It just helped me write it. I
Mm-hmm.
probably rewrote it like 20 times. It's just like I dove in all the way, and I tried to really unearth like the little callbacks that you might catch if you, read it straight through. I think you'll see how the end really hits the beginning again. Um, I hope it's a big surprise though. I really like love the ending has always been there. It never changed. And I just like the hard part was, okay, how do I get there? Because it's fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
But we did get there, and yeah, I really love it. I love this whole book. So it's tough to see it come out in little snippets over so long, because I just want people to like,
Read it.
I want to talk about it. I want to, I want you to know what this is. This is insane. You know, I tried to make the quintessential Hollywood revenge book. And it's
That's
tough because
cool.
there's a lot of competition out there with the revenge stuff. I think
Yeah,
Tarantino definitely has his stamp on some of that.
yeah, but also I feel like what you're doing, because okay, off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to tell you another like quintessential Hollywood revenge film, but we all know they're there. I'm just, you know, um, but they're not like this necessarily, because, or not that I'm aware of, because like I love the idea of, oh, is it Micah, the pop star that's like going to be the
Yeah.
new lead,
Oh
replacing
yeah.
Marion and
Mika. Yeah. She's
Mika, yeah,
oh
yeah,
god. Yeah.
and I love, there's so many things about her that are so the last like couple years, like just her getting out of the limo with her, like just the way
Mhm.
that she's drawn, like her posture, or like there's a picture of her on something where she's like, I think her tongue's sticking out and she's flipping off the camera. it's
Yeah.
it is the attitude of the like these kind of pop stars now, or like Instagram or YouTube or I don't know, this like,
The social media age kind of.
yeah, and like this fleeting fame where it's like it burns out very quickly because everything
Yeah.
just constantly turns over, right? It's like you're famous
Yeah.
now, but within a year, there's been how many iterations of the next person that did
Right.
basically what you did. Um,
Yeah. Oh God, the stuff with Mika is insane. That just goes, that just goes crazy. I'm very excited for that, but I'm also, because I've already written this it's so long ago, that I've been thinking about Beyond and what comes next, and she is the most exciting character for me afterwards.
really?
And yeah, and I think you won't know why after that you leave the book, and you'll be like, "What the fuck," But like, I'm just so excited to see the next chapter for her, because she becomes like a very central part of the whole thing. I love revenge because I feel like you can keep cycling it, because once you get revenge on somebody, there's somebody else who wants to get revenge on you, and you could keep finding ways to make it fresh, hopefully. Um, but oh man, I do have an end in sight for this. Um, and I thought I would be happy just doing these six, but I realized that I won't be happy doing these six. I needed to go
Mm-hmm.
further, because there's so much more like amazing stuff just beyond. So yeah, I think very much this first thing is Pinky, and I really tried to give Pinky her due. Um, but I think beyond that, it kind of opens up to maybe a bit of a power struggle for some of the characters and what they could transform into, you know.
Is it you or Santi or both that are the Hunter S. Thompson fan?
That's me. That's me for sure.
Because
Slander, yeah.
yeah, I am also a fan. And I remember that was one of the first things I thought when I brought that one home from the comic book. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, look,
Yeah.
it's Raul Duke.
I love Hunter S. Thompson so much. You know, I love Ralph Steadman. His art style kind of really influenced how I like to draw. But yeah, Slander is a character that I came up with in college, like so long ago. So long ago. Slander's just kind of stuck with me. And he
Mhm.
she pops up in a lot of my different stories. And I think he's kind of fun to just he could just say some dirty, raunchy, whatever stuff to just piss you off, and no one does anything about it, just because that's his kind of character.
Mhm.
Um, he doesn't really get too much. I just wanted to bring him in because he kind of felt like he fit with the
Oh,
team, the
that's
Freak
cool.
team, you
Yeah.
know. Um, I do think though I have another series I want to do called The Most Exciting Adventures of Slander Towels, and that's kind of like a space romance epic, and it kind of takes him across the universe. And
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so I hope I get there someday. But I feel like I'm not quite ready with that one to even attempt to write it. So it's just kind of like in the background somewhere. But you know, Slender will pop up again somewhere, you know, but not in Popscars. This will be kind of his like one story with this, and then he kind of moves on to other planets.
That's awesome.
But
Uh,
Popscars isn't sci-fi or anything. It's very
no.
grounded, you know.
Yeah, oh, it's very great. I mean, it feels like it feels like a new version of an old exploitation film, which is cool because you're dealing with people who made an exploitation uh, shark movie, and
Yeah.
then in the 80s, and now it's being redone. You know, like the whole setup where like um, I don't want to say too much. It's like, but basically like iconic swamp shark from the 80s that Harry Kincaid made, and it's kind of been wrestled out from under him, and now what's uh
Vincent. His
Vincent,
partner
and now
Vincent.
Vincent, who helped him but then was relegated to basically just operating the shark, right? And he took
Right.
that as Harry dissing him. um
Totally.
has control of it, is doing this new reboot with the pop star, and it's there's just a lot of this. So there's Harry's revenge there, there's Pinky's revenge against her father, but we won't go into that any more than
Right. Right.
in that. And like you said with revenge, it's a revolving door. And also, like, so to get your revenge, who knows how many people you leave in your wake who now want revenge against you.
Yeah.
But also I feel like once you have your revenge, what does that necessarily do? And I think that probably leads into what you were talking about Pinky's future. But it's just there's so many stories you can tell. Revenge is just it's almost like I could see this just 6 issues just being the seed that sprouts something completely, way bigger and more intricate.
I hope so. I think I really did try to stick with Pinky for this, but as I'm like looking at it now, I'm like, oh man, like there's so many new places to go, and the whole flavor of this could be kind of different. And I feel like because I was kind of trying to do the David Lynch thing, I was trying to be true to her and what happened to her and her story, that I didn't I pushed it as far as I could, like where I felt comfortable, and if where I felt like the audience would accept.
Mm-hmm.
And I was happy with that. You know, I'm like, I think that's like good. But I think, you know, now that you get through some of the emotional stuff, I think I'm really curious about pushing further now into different stuff where I feel like I don't have to be so careful, and maybe I could be a little bit more cavalier, and it can kind of get like crazier. And I
Mm-hmm.
see what that is. Like, because I think, you know, the promise of the premise, I'm gonna kill my dad and I'm gonna burn this fucking place to the ground, right? You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that. I want to see that. So like, you know, it's just interesting because once you kind of build it and break it, you could break it down. And like I feel like this
Mm-hmm.
6 issues builds it. And so I'm really excited to like really kind of mess with things and kind of turn things upside down and see like where that goes. Because I think, I don't want to overstay our welcome either, but I do think there's enough to do. I could see 2 more volumes and being really happy with how that could wrap up.
That's cool. I don't think you'll overstay. I mean, I feel like just hearing you talk about this, and like you obviously have a long view, and just the idea of taking that, be true to it. I mean, with a character this iconic, you know, I kind of look at it as, and I know I'm definitely, I don't know anybody else. I know one other person that feels the way I do about James O'Barr's The Crow, which is the graphic novel to me, which I read before the movie came out, is one of the most precious experiences I've ever had reading a comic. And I had been reading comics for a long time before I read it, but that just, I don't know. And I hate the movie. I know I'm in the minority. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie, but I just
Right.
feel like that character is so iconic that it has here's the Punisher is the perfect example of an iconic character that has overstayed its welcome.
Yeah.
And it's because you love a character so much, because you look at it and you're like, this is so iconic. But there's a limitation to what you can do with certain characters by nature of what the character is in their arc, right? So you're already talking about that. And also you already are talking to me about like, but I also see this for this character and this for, so I don't think you'll overstay your welcome just because you have all these ideas. It's not like you're just like, the name of the book is Pinky and that's all I got. Like you clearly have a lot of ideas. So that's awesome.
No, it is exciting. Again, I cautiously approach everything, but like I am excited to, my goal was to get the 6 out, and now that it's kind of like, it's I'm in the middle of it. I am like, oh man, I want more. I want more. I want more. And that's interesting. I've never read The Crow. I've seen the movie, but I've never read the graphic novel. So I will definitely hunt that down. Because I look for those experiences. I look for,
I don't know if it was, I mean, I read it every year. So, the thing is, when you read something, I think a senior in high school or junior in high school when I read it. And I don't know, you never know if somebody's going to have the same experience, like emotional experience, but it is just not the movie. The movie is like a superhero movie. It's not what the graphic novel is. It's just heartbreak.
I do feel like Popscars would be something where I could suffer that same kind of fate if it got adapted. I could see it easily. It's a tightrope. I could see it easily going to where maybe it went too far. Maybe it got cringy or something. And, I certainly wouldn't like that or appreciate that, but I'm happy that I am doing the comic version myself. I have like control, and I feel like I get to tell my version. Even if people did see a movie that they didn't like, they could go back and see where it came from and know, this is the intention that it had, But The Crow is interesting. You're right. It does become a superhero thing. I think Popscars has like a fake out superhero thing where the characters are designed almost as big as superheroes, but there's nothing superhero about anything. It's just it's Hollywood. It's just Hollywood,
That's what I like so much about like the way Harry speaks about his revenge crew is like, I'm the director. This is my show. It's going to be movie magic. Like everything is in the parlance of Hollywood. Even like when she's at the party and shit starts going pear-shaped, it never leaves that vernacular. It's always still there. Everybody is still always in that world. And it's such a seedy world, but it's also a wealthy and opulent world. So it's comprised of these weird like opposites. And I kind of feel like, again, that the idea like this is you kind of doing an exploitation storyline, but with like a big budget, because of where it's taking place and whatnot. And it's funny because then, it's about somebody who did the exploitation thing and now it's going big budget. So there's a weird I don't want to say meta exactly, because it never, at no point is there like a wink wink. So it's not like that. But I just feel like there's layers folded into it that really kind of makes it hum in a way that I wasn't expecting. Um, it's a nice surprise. And I see what you mean about like the Pinky, that when you look at that first cover, what you think you're going to get isn't what you get, but that just, I don't know, it just makes it better. Not to say that when we get
Yeah.
that Pinky, if we do, and also like, dude, this character, I could see six large, like, it's Friday the 13th. Like, look at like, you have a character that could easily slot into an exploitation series that where it might not be this, and maybe like you said, you'd be weary of it overstaying its welcome. I feel like it would still work.
Yeah, I think if someone takes that approach though, as like the exploitation kind of foundation style, I think the gritty kind of dirty, I think that's like a good foundation to move from. But I
Yeah,
also think though, like I think women would have to be heavily involved in any kind of like film of this
yeah,
this kind of adaptation. I think let somebody who can really get attached to Pinky and like really pull out everything that they could. I'm doing my best, but it's hard to write, a female character who's out for revenge, against these. It's not hard, but it's hard to do it true, like the David
yeah.
Lynch thing. And I think, a movie, yeah, let like an awesome female director take this on and let her do like an exploitation film. That would be just like, yeah, then now I'm like, okay, that sounds sick.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right.
Who knows though? We'll see. I hope that Popscars I just hope it does really well. I love it. To me, I've never put so much into anything. I've never dug so deep for the story or the characters. And this, I mean, it's not only was it just years, but I really, it's the thing that kept me up at night. It's the thing that like I would just keep watching it in my head and discovering new ways to take it, and it just, it's the creative dream to find a story like this and characters like this.
Hmm.
So I am having a blast though, man. It's
Good.
been it's fun, but it's all kind of like I feel like I'm wrapping things up on my end. So it's like, people are experiencing it for the first time, but I'm kind of like I've written it where all the art's done. I'm just kind of I'm missing it already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, right. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're working on, the next thing too. So that's, you know,
Yeah, I am. I'm kind of kicking around some ideas. I have I have more pop scars and what I think that could be. I'm working on something cool with my wife. We're working on a high fashion horror graphic novel that's kind of like her. She's writing it, and I'm kind of just like helping her kind of find it in the comic form.
oh, that's
Um,
cool.
but we found an artist, and we're gonna kind of be moving on this slowly and taking our time. But I think it's gonna be really sick. And then I have a couple other things that are kind of fun. Nothing as heavy and dark as Pop Scars for me. Pop Scars felt like it was like an edge of something that I can't quite get to again.
Hmm.
Everything feels like a lot more tame versus
Hmm.
that. But yeah, I definitely have some cool stuff I would like to get to.
Let me ask. So for the audience, so I asked Pat, it's if there was any movies or anything he wanted to mention that was like an influence that we could talk about, and you timed it well because you brought up Old Boy, which is being re-released in theaters for is it 20th or 25th? I think 20th anniversary.
20th because it came out in 2003.
Three, that's right, that's right. Unfortunately, I don't. Do you know when it's actually going to be in theaters?
I think it's August 16th, and I think it's just for one day. They haven't dropped tickets yet, at least as far as I know, because I'm like waiting for them to drop. I want to get a ticket like as soon as possible, because it's just a movie I never expected to see in theaters ever,
Yeah,
ever, ever, ever. And the fact that that's an opportunity, oh man,
yeah.
that's like there's only a couple movies that I like would like absolutely love to see in theaters that I just haven't, and like Old Boy is like probably number two. I think Clockwork Orange was probably number one, but I think Old Boy, which is just going to be such a treat. And I I when I was younger, I would work jobs, and when I would like in high school, you work jobs and you don't really have anything to spend your money on when you're like that young, unless you save it. And I did not save it. I bought movies. I was a
Mm-hmm.
movie hunter. I would hunt and seek movies, and I would want to see where people were taking stuff, how far were people pushing stuff. And I remember hearing about Old Boy and so much talk about it. What's this movie? What's this like South Korean movie that's everyone's like putting on so high on their movie list, best of all time, and Tarantino presenting it and stuff like that. And like I remember going to New York on like a family trip, and we went to Virgin Records, and I found Old Boy, the DVD there, and I was so stoked. And I remember watching it on like a portable DVD player on the drive back to Pennsylvania. And I remember like thinking, oh my gosh, I hope my family doesn't see me watching this. This movie is like way crazier than I expected. But it's just one of those movies that I love. I hunted it down. I found it. It took me places I never wanted to go, but
Yeah.
like it left a lasting impression on me. And to me, it's just like that's the ultimate revenge movie of all time. And like the style, the textures, the coloring, the cinematography, the acting, the reason there's a hammer in Popscars is like a little nod to Old Boy. I really love that film so much. And like and the Vengeance trilogy I like, but that one is there's something just perfect about that movie. And
Yeah.
it's definitely not for everybody. And it's one I like rarely will even like recommend, because it's like it's hard. It goes far. But yeah, that's one I just absolutely love.
Yeah, I just rewatched it last night. I think I watched it shortly before I moved last year, and then it had been a couple years, and I rewatched it last night with my girlfriend, and she hadn't seen it. She'd seen me watching it, but she hadn't seen it. She's like, I don't know, I'll watch the beginning, and like just immediately sucked in, and
How could you not be sucked in? That opening,
there's no way
just
you
like,
can't. And
yeah,
the thing about how I see that as I'm watching, I'm like, I totally see the influence where it is that Revenge is just such a sloppy, like everything about everything that happens, like nothing really goes well for anybody. Like the best
no,
thing that happens is like, at some point he'll like pick himself up and be like, well, I'm alive. Like,
right, yeah.
but that's about it. And yeah, it is, man, I don't know. It's something else. It is a fantastic film, and I can't wait to see it. I'm
I
just hoping we get it here. I'm really, really hoping. I think we might.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it until I could do the theater experience again. But as I was thinking about like Popscars Volume 2, Volume 3, there's a something in Old Boy that I am stealing directly from Old Boy, and I'm gonna do to one of the characters. But it's like it's straight up ripped off from it, and I don't care because I love it so much. But I somehow found a way to make something like a more direct connection to Old Boy, like kind of fit, down the line.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, I the remake or the whatever they did,
Doesn't exist.
I can't even entertain it at all.
Doesn't
Um,
exist. Like
yeah,
I mean, I like Josh Brolin, I like Spike Lee. Uh it reminds me of Martyrs, where somebody told me about it. I'm like, there's no reason. Like there's just no reason.
I'll never watch the remake of Martyrs. No way, no way.
I've only seen Martyrs once, and I will watch it again, but I am fucking afraid to watch that movie
I've
a
only seen it
second.
once, and I am afraid too, man.
Dude,
That movie was so much. Oh,
so it goes, I remember being warned, and like the first 45 minutes I was like, this is incredible, and then it takes a turn,
yeah.
and then the rest of the movie I just remember being like, oh, like it was going to be too much, and then the last thing that happens makes it just condones everything you've just sat through, where almost if it wasn't for that, I would not be able to condone sitting through that, those just
It's torturous. It is
oh,
torturous, but I get what you mean. And that is it's that movie hits you like a sledgehammer, man. I when I like to look or like the like edge stuff? What's on like the periphery of movies? If movies are like a map and comedies are in the middle, like what's like the fringe stuff? What's on the edge? And like, I sometimes it's too far for me. Sometimes I'm like, oh
Same.
my God, that went way too far, but I do like to investigate like what's out there. And I feel like horror is probably the one that can push it the furthest,
Yeah.
right? And maybe when horror and drama kind of mix, but I do like to find those kind of movies, and I feel like Martyrs definitely is one that kind of is an edge, and it's I don't know how you go beyond it without becoming like something like a documentary snuff film or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean, and I like that idea, like the way you're describing like movies as a map, right? So you look at the old like Royal Geographical Society maps where it's like the world, and then like here there be monsters and whatnot, right? The
Yeah.
fringes, and to me, the edges that I guess that I've experienced are Martyrs, which is I accept and like I'm okay with it. Irreversible, which I think is an amazing film, but I don't ever like somebody gave it to me as a gift. I gave it back to them. I'm like, I don't want to be a dick. I appreciate it. Get it the fuck away from me. It's an amazing movie. I don't ever want to even think about it again. And then
Never again.
Requiem for a Dream,
Oh
same
yeah.
thing. I still own it, but it's like I
I'm never
just
gonna put it
can't.
on. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
never,
watch it. I'm never gonna put
ever.
it on again.
And
Yeah, that one.
anything, I know there's shit beyond that. There's a lot of that like American Guinea Pig. I just won't ever go there. I just
Right, me either. I feel like there's fringes in terms of like still being a film. I think there's stuff that goes beyond it that it's I still want stuff to be a film and still be like a creative experience, and
yeah,
even if it is pushing me to an uncomfortable place, with
yeah.
which like the Gaspar stuff always goes there. It always goes there, but that one definitely goes too far. That one goes like way too far. Oh yeah, and even that like, what is it with the fire hydrant or something
That's
like
with the
at the
fire
end?
extinguisher. That is, I mean,
Yeah. Oh man, it's too much. It's like it's too real, and it makes me like almost want to jump out of my skin.
I was terrified when I watched Climax because of that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Did you? I was just gonna ask you about Climax. Yeah.
I love it. It didn't go. There were places I thought that it was going to go, being that
I
there was
did
a
too.
kid there, and I
Right.
was so thankful.
He tamed it. He tamed it, and it's still crazy. He tamed it down. It's nuts though. I mean, like, what is there like? There's got to be like a 10-minute shot that's upside down in that
Oh,
movie.
it becomes a Bosch painting. I mean,
Yeah,
literally, it's
yeah.
literally like the innards of
It's a
hell.
mess. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a mess. I do love the idea of like this dance tripping on acid, and it's just a mess. He's an interesting filmmaker. Enter the
he
Void is
is.
a film that is I can't watch it, but he pushed it to a place where nobody thought to go. So I think he's experimenting, and I think what he has to say and do with film is interesting. But even if I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he's, amazing. It's just like Into the Void I haven't watched just because I was going to, but that was the one well, I don't know if it was I knew Irreversible and I'd put that behind me by a couple years and somebody recommended Into the Void and I was like, I just don't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
Climax was the first one back for me. Did you see the one with Dario Argento in it? Vortex?
No, I haven't, but I love Dario Argento's movies. Even if like they're bad, I still
Oh
like
yeah.
his.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Italian like horror cinema person, like especially like the 70s and 80s, like the Fulci stuff and the
Mm-hmm.
Bava stuff. I do love all of that stuff. I remember going to Amoeba and just like buying that stuff up, man, because it's just like it's my favorite stuff. The Suspiria is,
Yep.
from '77. It's just, yeah, that's top 10 favorite movie for sure.
Oh, it's like that and Inferno are they're just so fucking good. Like, yeah. Uh Definitely. So Vortex, the Gaspar Noé from 2021 with Argento, it's it's just it's an old couple. the woman is slowly getting dementia and he's got a bad heart, and it's almost real time and it's mostly split screen and it just follows them. It's a lot of work. There's nothing in it anything like his other movies, right? So there's not like terrible, awful, things like that. But the terrible, awful is basically just seeing these people at the end of their life kind of like diminish.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of work because like it's almost real time, and but it's worth it. I don't know that I could sit through it again, not because it disturbed me so much, but because it like, okay, I did it once, I get it, but it's worth seeing it. And Argento, I mean, he's as an actor, he was absolutely stunning. So it was a cool experience seeing that.
And that's interesting. He's kind of like he's up there in age now too.
Yeah.
I got to see Suspiria. It might have been Beyond Fest with him there.
I was there.
And he talked to. So do you remember? Okay, do you remember? Somebody asked him about like where he was inspired from, the look, and he said he was talking about Snow White. He was talking about he was inspired from all the colors, but from Snow White. And then literally the next question that came up was, what was the inspiration behind all the colors? And his answer was, I just told you, Snow White. But it was just so funny in his thick Italian accent. I always remember that. I thought that was hysterical. I mean, the music, Goblin is just incredible, and that that's a record I'll throw on too, just to get me in the vibe of something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So good.
Did you like the remake of it?
I did, and the thing I liked about it was that Luca Guadagnino was like, I'm not making the same movie.
Yeah.
What did you like it?
No, but I think there's reasons why. I think they got Tom York to do a score to a movie he didn't watch. So
that was the worst thing about the movie.
Why do I care about that? Like, why are you scoring it? Like, I thought that was stupid. I thought Tilda was great in it. But I did think it was kind of a slog with some of the ballet stuff. I thought the end was insane. The end reminded me of a Rob Zombie movie in a good way, kind of. I didn't totally love it, but I felt like, call it something else. Make this a movie that has nothing to do with Suspiria, because I don't understand why it's called Suspiria. You know what I mean?
I agree. I like the thing that initially won me over, because I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. They leaked at some point that, or I don't even know if it was leaked or if somebody I knew was something where it's like, dude, that old man, that's Tilda Swinton. I was like, wait, what? So that really, and she's just beyond reproach, right? So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But when that movie starts and you realize that they're going to use the whole time period in the late 70s in Germany and like the Bader Meinhof and all that, and they're actually going to use that where the first movie doesn't use it, and it shouldn't use it. It's not what it's about, right? It's like a fairy tale. We leave the city and go to the woods immediately, right?
Yes.
I thought that was such an interesting thing, and there were some slog passages for sure. The thing with the end, I feel like that scene, that bloodbath, would have been amazing if they had used an instrumental track. The thing about Tom York's voice, there's a couple Radiohead albums I absolutely love, but when I hear his voice, it's so distinctive. Guess what? I'm no longer submerged in your movie. I'm aware I'm watching something with Tom York singing over it, and it pulled me fuck out of it.
Yeah, so I think it was like some of the choices were a little just strange to me, and that Tom York score thing though was like the worst part of it. And I'm a Radiohead fan. I love Radiohead. I love all their albums. I think they're great. But I think part of it is my expectations mess me up a lot. Like with the new Evil Dead film, my expectations were so high that I ended up thinking it was just okay. Same. It was fine.
Did you like 2013?
I did, but I don't love it like I do the Raimi ones. The Raimi ones are just a different level. I thought that one was interesting, and I felt like they did some cool gory stuff, and I liked the girl in it. The new one, I thought the mom was fantastic, and I thought the lead character girl was a little like, I think she's a good actress, but I think she was playing the character a little stiff. It was a character I didn't get behind.
Mhm.
Like, I want to root for you. I want to root for you to kill these demons, and I just didn't really care if, like, I would have been happier, not happier, but I would have been fine if she became a deadite too. I like it. I didn't need her to live. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I thought it was some interesting stuff. I thought like a lot of it was built up to be like the cheese grater thing was cool, but it was like 1 second. Like, why not like go all the way? Why not grate the whole fucking person? Like, I felt like there was weird choices, you know?
You know, the thing with the thing in that movie that did that to me, the fucking tattoo needle not going into the eye, I thought was the
Yeah.
biggest, like, and I love 2013. So when I rank these movies, Evil Dead 2 is by far my favorite, but 2013 is my second favorite.
Really.
And the thing about it's no disrespect to the original Evil Dead, I love it.
I love it.
Army of Darkness I like, but it's just I don't know. There's
You just have to, if you love Ash, then it's for you, the campy Ash. Yeah.
and I love
You
Ash
know?
and I love Campy Ash. I love the series, that was on
Yeah.
Netflix or Stars or whatever it was on. But 2013 impressed me because there's no fucking comedy. It's so severe. There's
Yeah.
literally, it's the only movie I know of that I watch that I've seen it 7 times. There's a scene where I still do this. And I'm just, and all of the imagery, the raining blood at the end, and she's got the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Uh,
That
And
I like better than the new one. The chainsaw stuff in the old one was better than the new one.
so the new one, I was like, they brought the comedy back, and I didn't think it worked. Let that be Ash. Don't do that. Like, that's Ash. Don't, But then also, I'm like, another movie that ends with raining blood and a chick with a chainsaw. Can we do something different? Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand why they did all that. Like, do something totally different than everything else now. There's so
I
much
know.
room.
I feel like that to me was a script thing. I feel like that movie could have been better in a script form, and then I think it would have been better on screen. I think the actors they had were pretty good and could have done a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
think they did. I thought the kids were really good. Really, the mom was a standout. She, I think, was maybe a little underserved. I think she could have done way more. But yeah, my expectations were so high, too high. It was just like I was expecting like a perfect horror film, and I think it's a filmmaker who's still finding his feet, and he's a good filmmaker. I think he'll do some really cool horror films for sure.
Yeah.
I think I just think Evil Dead to me is sacred, and I want the best. I want the best. You're gonna give me Evil Dead. Give me like the best shit you got.
There's so much room that you could do. Like, a comic book called The Silver Coin?
Mm-hmm.
So I love the idea of that as an anthology where like one issue's in 1977, one issue's in 1985, one issue is in like the far-flung future.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you could totally do that with the Evil Dead. So the fact that they kind of just regurgitated, I don't know. I mean, it's still I still enjoyed it, but like you,
I did too.
I had expectations, and I mean, they can all say, fuck you and your expectations. Yeah,
I'm happy.
You're
Yeah,
not wrong.
You're totally. I love being told that because they are doing something that they wanted to do,
Yep.
and I'm but also I'm just going to tell you what I think, and
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't love it. I had way too high expectations, and I think I just sometimes watch stuff as a filmmaker too, when it's especially horror, because I want to do horror. I'm like, oh, I would have done something different. I would have done that different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen any like other horror films this year that you were like into, or because I find myself going back. I'm going back. I'm watching a lot of old stuff, and I'm finding a lot of
What
joy
have you
in
watched
that.
recently?
Well, it's just stuff I've seen a million times. You know what I mean? It's just like I'll go on Tubi and throw on like Chopping Mall or whatever, and just like really just like love it.
So I watched recently. I watched a movie called Unwelcome by it's the guy that did a movie called Grabbers a couple years ago, where it was like terrible title for a movie, but it's like this like alien invasion in this small town in Ireland, and they realize that the only way to survive is to get shit-faced drunk, because then when they attack you, it kills them. And it's a great movie.
That's funny.
So yeah, I know. I was like, oh, what a great concept. Terrible name for a movie, but
Yeah.
John Wright is the director, so he's got a new movie just came out called Unwelcome. Absolutely blew me away.
Really?
Oh my God. It's young couple find out that they're gonna have a baby. There's a really dark moment where some like hoodlums that give her husband a hard time break into their flat and just fuck them up. And so they end up moving to the country in Ireland, and it works in folklore, but it also works in another kind of like shady human element. And I don't know. I figured I'd like it, but I liked it so much more. And maybe that's the expectation thing, where like I didn't have I thought I'd like it, but my expectations weren't super high, and it landed that way.
Okay, I have not. This is the first time I'm even like laying eyes on any of this stuff, so I haven't seen this one. I haven't heard of this one. I'll definitely see if I could find it online or something.
It's going to be on Shudder at the end of the month. Wait, it's the end. It is the end of the month, so it should be on like any time.
Oh, great! Yeah, that sounds great. I would be so down to check that out.
The other one, I guess, this year. So the other two this year was Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool, which I saw multiple times in the theater, blew me away.
I really, really wanted to see it.
Oh, dude, it's because
I really like Possessor a lot. I think Possessor is like that's hard. That's a hard movie, and he does not he just swings it. He swings straight through, and I really like what he is capable of. And I really wanted to see Infinity Pool. It just kind of evaded me with scheduling, and I just missed it. I didn't get to the theaters. But I loved how it looked. It just looked really interesting and cool. And I'm a sucker for like creepy masks, and I saw they had like some freaky masks, and it looked like just like it looked like there was some elements of like blue velvet in it, and I was just like, I'm down. I do need to check that out still.
You'll definitely dig it. Yeah, I mean that man, wow.
Did you see Beau is Afraid?
I did. Did you?
I did, yeah.
What did you think?
I mean, my friend put it best. He said, sometimes it's good to have like people edit you. And I felt like that was a movie where he probably could have used a couple people to talk him in a different direction. I love the first 45 minutes though, when he's in his apartment and there's just like chaos in the streets. Like I was in, but then I felt like the next 2 hours, I was just like, oh man.
I was pretty blown away. I have to see it again. I was blown away just in that, like, all I knew going in, I didn't watch a trailer or anything, and I had heard him say, I saw him say in an interview, something like it's a nightmare comedy. And we know, like, there's an immediate approximation as a horror fan you kind of achieve when you hear that, right? And then I'm watching, I'm like, oh no, this is a fucking nightmare comedy. Mm-hmm. And man, that movie did some interesting things, and it wasn't what I expected, it wasn't what I wanted. He's just, there's so many things about Ari Aster. It's like the beginning of Midsommar, the whole reveal of the murder suicide of her family. No other director would have been able to make that anything but laughable. It's so ridiculous, right? But it is not when he does it. It is
it's like so he's an interesting guy. I have, like all of the horror people, my eye on him because of Hereditary was just like awesome. I love Hereditary. Midsommar I saw, and oh man, it just like got under my skin, and like it's not a movie that I want to revisit. And immediately after it, my friend and I were just feeling like down. and we're like, "You want to go see Spider-Man?" And we immediately went and saw Spider-Man Far From Home. Just to like kind of, I couldn't go home after watching Midsummer. I needed to
I
like
could see that.
cleanse the palate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I saw Beau is Afraid is coming out, I was like, he's stepping away from horror. He's doing something different, but I'm sure it's going to be cool. And he's doing different stuff. And I guess if you're able to do that stuff as a filmmaker and get away with it, like I guess go for it. Go for the moon. Do whatever you want. As a viewer, I would have cut like an hour and a half out of that movie, and I think I would have loved it. I think I would have enjoyed it way more. I thought some of it just got lost in itself a bit.
I could see that. It reminded me so much of a Terry Gilliam kind of feel, like the whole journey. And I was busy trying to unpack stuff. But I mean, the first 45 minutes, there's the scene that I go back to in my head over and over where I felt like, because you're sitting down, you have expectations, and then the movie starts and you don't really know what you're seeing. And the scene where I was like, okay, I can relax. I got where we're going, which ended up being false, but it prepared me for the ride. It cuts to that like melee in the streets.
Yeah.
And then you just see that guy with the tattoos look up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he comes running, right? And it was so funny.
Yeah.
It was that and the scene where the sister or whatever drinks the paint. I laughed so hard I thought I was going to fucking die. I mean, I'm aware nobody, I mean, there were like 3 people in the theater, but I feel like I was probably getting looks.
I'm sure that's a hard movie to read, especially the comedy of it. I'm sure that's like a weird movie to pick out the funny moments. But that moment in the streets, I love that stuff. I was just like, oh, give me that. I want to take that for Popscars. Like, I love all that stuff.
It is.
And then that tattoo guy just like running. It was just, oh, I love that. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, that easily my favorite part.
Yeah, there's some stuff that I definitely liked and had a kick out of. I just think overall, like if I had to sit through it again, I would have a tough time maybe. But again, it's like, if you can get away with that stuff, like I guess go ahead. see what you can pull off,
I would still like to see something. I mean, dude, Hereditary. It's like Midsummer, I feel like is a much better movie, but I don't want to go there. Like it's just too emotionally abusive.
Yeah.
So Hereditary is the right amount, right?
Yeah,
of everything.
Hereditary it is far too. Hereditary is tough in all those ways, but I feel like I can sit through it and I get those surprises, and I like watching the acting, and I that one was a fun find just because I think it was like around the time A24 started doing these like weird horror films, and I think it's at the same time where like Blumhouse is doing all these like horror films for everyone. And I found myself like not really liking that. Like I didn't like that direction for horror. I don't like, I get that you need to make money off movies, and all these Blumhouse movies are just like banking. But like I don't like any of them. That's not like the horror I like.
Mm-hmm.
And then like luckily A24 had some cool stuff that I was just like gravitating to, and like The Witch and that kind of stuff. I really I like that stuff. I want more of it, but I don't know where horror is going right now. It's hard to tell. I hope it goes in a kind of a cool way. I have a friend who wrote an original horror film called Cobweb. The trailer just came out recently.
Dude. Good trailer.
And so Chris Devlin, who wrote that, he's been a college friend of mine and my favorite writer for years. I've always wanted to like do something with him. But to see him like blossoming as a writer and getting, this is his first, original idea out, and it just looks awesome. I'm just like so that I'm excited for horrors, like people like him who get it and are gonna push it and try to put out some cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah, that's definitely on my radar, and I was super happy to see it's gonna get like a wide release and everything. And
awesome, I love that. That's so cool. Some of the stuff in the trailer is just creepy, man. And like the stuff with the pumpkins, I could tell is going to be like, there's something weird going on with that stuff,
Yeah. I've gotten to the point now. I watched the trailer. I don't even know if I watched the whole trailer. Trailers now, I used to not have a problem with them, but Evil Dead Rise, I saw that trailer before every movie I went to see for like a month and a half, 2 months.
Oh yeah.
And I actually think that the trailer more than anything else. So the mother character in Evil Dead Rise, I think the trailer ruined that
her
movie. Yeah, because all of that shit would have been eyes bugging out of your sockets watching that shit happen.
I know.
But I'd seen it so many times.
I really think trailers give away too much. Sometimes I'll watch a trailer and just say, I just saw the movie and I'm good now. I'm good. I don't need to go see. And that's like, they should be shorter. I don't get these trailers that go on for over 2 minutes. Like, what are you doing? Why?
Yeah.
So I want to go to the movie to be surprised and have that experience. I don't want so there's a movie trailer that just came out, Craven. And that's a movie that I won't see because they literally showed me the best stuff already. Like the bear trap thing on the head. Like, why did you have to do that in the trailer, man?
We should probably end.
Absolutely.
Dude, Pat, this is awesome. Please, dude, you can come back whenever. Like, I would love to have you just back on. Like, I might randomly be like, hey, you like this movie? Because we're going to talk about it or something like that. Like, just if you're free.
Oh, I would love to. Because I could tell you're a kindred spirit and the stuff that we connect with. And I love talking about movies. And, I've been having kind of a battle with movies lately. And I think it would be good to kind of revisit some stuff and talk about some stuff and celebrate them. I love that stuff. So I'd be happy to come back. And, I was on a podcast before when issue 1 came out, and I said, like, let's do a wrap up and talk about it when it's over. Let's talk about it after you read everything, and let's come back. So I think we should do that too, because I just can't wait to hear what you think. And then we could kind of actually get into it more.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be like tiptoeing around certain things, like, because I think, that would be fun to revisit after, like, maybe before the graphic novel comes out.
Yeah, definitely. That's great, because then we can pimp the graphic novel's release and we can talk about the story. Yeah, it's a 100%.
Okay.
So definitely, I have a feeling I'll email you my phone number so you have my digits, and then I may randomly throw like stuff at you.
I'm all for it.
And it's always like, I mean, it's also really hard to wrangle all of the people.
I do know.
If you make it, you make it. If not, no big deal. But for absolute sure, definitely after issue 4 comes out. So in 2 months, roughly 2.5 months, not 4, 6. Sorry. After 6 comes out. But for the listeners, to reiterate, number 4 comes out on the 28th of June. And then 5 and 6 will follow shortly thereafter. 1, 2, and 3 should still probably be on the stands at the comic shop. Unless they sold out. Sold out. Say again?
They're tough to find. Yeah, I'm not seeing
the early
issues now. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I didn't want to. I realized I said that I don't want you to think that I'm thinking that it's not selling.
No. It's. I wish that it was still available for people to grab, but I think it is it's off shelves. I'm trying to get a website up. I do have some copies that I kind of want to get out there if people need, and I do have all the covers and stuff like that. So it's just setting up a website is such a process, man.
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
So, but yeah, I'd love to come back, man.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. It's on for sure.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to reading 4, 5, and 6, man. So,
yes.
Very psyched, and just, congratulations on the success. And it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Shawn. This was fun, man. I really like doing this.
Right on, man. Well, we'll have you back soon.
Awesome.
All right. Later, sir.
Okay. Be good. Have a good night.
You too. Hi, this is Shawn from the Horror Vision. So Pat and I talked for a very long time. I've edited some of that out of the main body of the show because we go off on tangents that are, for the most part, outside the purview of the podcast. Although I've said before, I mean, essentially we can do whatever we want. It's our podcast. But I also appreciate that some people might be here for horror and horror alone, and they don't want to hear us talk about things like David Fincher's Fight Club or Todd Phillips' The Joker. So I have bookended this episode with the rest of our conversation. So if you want to keep listening, that's what follows. It might be 20 minutes to half an hour of extra material. So otherwise, we'll be back soon with another episode. Yeah, I watched it. I wasn't totally paying attention. I mean, I love Spider-Man, and I like my favorite Spider-Man story is Kraven's Last Hunt. But it's one of the best comic stories ever. I read it as a kid as it was coming out, and I remember like, yeah, I mean, I was like, oh my god, this,
yeah, it's like the best. It's like the greatest.
It's just
Spider-Man.
so good, and
yeah, it's awesome.
I just the way Sony is doing these movies, like I knew in the comic book they would organize screenings, and I remember June was like, "Do you want to go to see Morbius?" I was like, "Not in any way, shape, or form." And he's like, "Yeah, nobody else does either, but we're gonna go." And everybody that went except for one person was like, "Dude, fuck that movie." But I don't understand the whole thing about like, let's take these characters that are like villains or rogues gallery and give them their own movie. It just seems so like
you know why though? It's because the Joker came out and the Joker cleaned up, and now they're like, oh, we have all these bad guys, we have all these great bad guys, but like I'm not buying any of it, and I didn't even buy the Joker. I felt like the Joker was a rehash of Martin Scorsese's films, just like
it's King of Comedy and
King of Comedy,
Taxi
Driver. Yeah,
but I loved it.
I didn't. I think Joaquin, amazing.
That's what I loved about it.
Mo was afraid. Everything he does, he is incredible, and I buy it all the way. But I think my problem was like the Todd Phillips kind of direction, where that's another movie where I wish you didn't call it the Joker. And
that was my thing. I just pretend. I pretend that it's not the Joker, and like the worst part of the movie is when he talks to Bruce Wayne's dad, because I'm like, I don't want to have that connective tissue, right? And it's funny. So my girlfriend and I saw that. I expected not to like it, but I love Joaquin, and I was like, I feel like this is the feel good movie of the summer. And I know other people that saw it and they're like, that's kind of twisted, but then Beyond Fest did a free screening at the Arrow, and we got tickets. I don't know how. I like literally was writing and just looked at my phone when the push happened on Twitter, and I got like, ugh. Todd Phillips was there. He talked about how they want him to do a sequel. I'm not doing a sequel. I'm just not going to do it. A week later, they announced the sequel, and it's because they backed a dump truck full of money up to his fucking. I mean, I get it.
I get it too. He's an interesting director. Like the Hangover movies blew up. He was like the king of he like brought back comedy, and like that was like a huge trilogy, even back to Old School, but like I love Old School. I just think that he doesn't have his own kind of vision, because when I watch Old School, I see Fight Club all over it. I see Fight Club in almost every shot, and I'm just like, oh man, like he's just ripping off Fight Club and he turned it into a comedy about frat boys, And then when I watched the Joker, the best part of the Joker for me was the score. I thought the score was like beyond fantastic, like incredible mood setting, and it really brought me into the feeling of the movie. But like it was just too much to see. I felt like David Fincher, cinematographer, jumped on that movie, and it was just like he was just like, make this look like all David Fincher's movies,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I loved the Joker and the Heath stuff, like everybody did, but then I felt like everybody loved the Joker, and he became too much, and he started showing up too much, and it ruined him. The character is now ruined. I think. I don't think you can't get to where they want him to be again. Like he's not going to have that kind of. He's just he works best if he's not used a lot. If he shows up once every 15 years or something, like That's what
Yes,
I
and
think.
I mean, I grew up reading Batman off and on in the 80s, and he wasn't always there. And now I feel like I haven't read Batman in decades, but anytime I mean, he's got his own book. He's in there's a
Uh,
thousand versions of him, a
yeah,
thousand, and it's the same thing with the Punisher. It's like
yeah.
they've just strip mined it to the point where it's like, I couldn't give a shit. I thought he was strip mined before Nolan used him.
Mhm.
And, but I feel like he did something different with the character and it reinvigorated it.
You know what
But
though? That movie is almost unwatchable without if you took like I mean, obviously that's why he's in the movie, but like all the scenes without him are so boring, you know?
interesting. I haven't seen it
I
in a long time.
yeah, I thought I used to love like every Nolan movie, and now I'm like looking back on some of them, and I'm like, maybe I don't like that as much as I thought I did. I guess you know, I see him. He's the filmmaker. He's putting on the biggest movies. Um, but like, I think maybe I was swept up or something because I
It
think
happens.
yeah, Batman's Begins is a great movie, you know, and I thought The Dark Knight, I loved The Dark Knight so much. The Joker, Heath, loved it. But like now when I look back, I love the Heath scenes, but I don't love the movie. I think the movie is kind of whack, you know? And
It's
it's like,
interesting. I've always been reticent to rewatch the third one because when I saw it in the theater, it absolutely blew me away. And
yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, there was just a lot rolled into that viewing too.
Oh, so
I,
much.
I mean, it
He's the
just
hype
had,
man. He's the hype. He just gets so much the hype, the hype, the hype, the
yeah,
hype, you know, and like that one was tough because I know it would have turned out different if Heath was still alive. I know they would have done something completely different. And like, you know, you see him trying to do the Dark Knight Returns a little bit. You see him trying to do Nightfall a little bit, but like I felt like he pulled. I like when they pull from a bunch of different comics. I just that one. I don't know. I don't know about him. I sometimes I love his movies, and sometimes I'm like, that's too Hollywood now. I'm like jaded or something to it. It's too Hollywood.
I haven't seen anything. Uh, Interstellar and Beyond. I haven't seen anything. I'm not against seeing them. I just haven't seen them.
Yeah,
The Prestige to me is, if you say Christopher Nolan, I think of The Prestige. I love that
yeah, and
movie.
I
Just
love that
rewatched it,
movie.
and
It's so fantastic.
I'm pretty good like just leaving it there. I don't know if I'll go to see Oppenheimer. I'm glad that Cillian Murphy got the lead. I think that's great because I really like him.
Yeah, I do too. You
It's
know
the thing
why
with
I'm curious about Oppenheimer? He asked his visual effects person to come up with like a way to showcase how this dude thinks of the world, like how he sees in atoms and like his scientific brain. But he said do it all practically, and that was the reason enough for me to be like, okay, I do want to see what they do. You know, if we're gonna get into his like psyche and how he sees the world, but we're gonna kind of see some like new techniques to kind of show that. I think that's really interesting.
that is pretty. That is the single most motivating thing I've heard or read to make me want to see. And again, like I don't think it's going to be a bad movie. I'm sure it'll be a great
No,
movie.
I think
But
so too. Yeah.
it also there's just, I mean, talk about a first world problem. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, like a lot of times it just seems like okay, it's a 3 hour movie. I'm sure it's going to be great, but
I
I
know.
don't know.
My
Sometimes I just don't want to. I'm like,
no, no, I agree. My favorite movie length is like 80 minutes. Like, oh yes, give me an 80-minute movie. And I'm like, I love it.
yeah,
I love it so much. You know, and that's usually horror. It's horror can
yeah,
be lean. It could be that lean where it just
yeah.
like 80, 90 minutes, you know.
And I'm not
That's
adverse
the
to
stuff I like.
longer.
Me either.
And there's plenty. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's plenty that where it's like, oh,
Like all Paul Thomas Anderson movies are really
yeah, there
long.
you go, there you
I
go.
love them all. I love them
Yeah,
all, you know.
I
I
agree.
think Tarantino's movies have been getting progressively longer.
Yeah,
And I like most of them. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's turned a leaf, and it's a leaf I wish he didn't turn, but it's a leaf of he's a dad now. He's married. He got all his rage and anger kind of out of his system, and I felt like that's his filmmaking though. Like I think
hmm
I think Once Upon a Time is a great movie. It's fantastically written, and but it's not, to me. That's like, I want the other stuff. I want, like the Hateful Eight. I want the Inglourious Bastards. I want Kill Bill. You know,
Reservoir Dogs will always be my favorite because it's kind of that like I
it's the
kind of
raw. I
harbored
love it.
I harbored I saw that like before Pulp Fiction. My friend Sonny just had a knack for finding these weird crime movies,
Yeah.
and we watched that movie. We could quote it, and it's kind of that cunty, like I was into that band first kind of thing, but I can't
Mhm.
help it. So like Pulp Fiction, I mean, it was great because because of Pulp Fiction, a lot of new filmmakers got to give us movies, and it just really. But it's my least favorite, and I think that's the reason why, because it was the one where it was the
It
same thing
opened
with
up.
Nine Inch Nails to me, where it was like
Yeah.
the Downward Spiral is always the album that I connect to the least. It's great,
Yeah.
but it's the one where all of a sudden, like, why are all the cheerleaders wearing Nine Inch Nails shirts?
Yeah.
It's just
And it's still, that album has like some of my favorite songs. I know what you mean though. There's something about like when something gets too big, but you knew about it first, you can't hold on to it like it's yours anymore, you know?
and usually I can come back around and just be like, like it, but it's usually that first one out
Yeah.
where that happens, where it just kind of sullies it a little bit for me, and it's
Mhm.
my baggage. I always say my baggage. Like I know Downward Spiral is fucking amazing,
Yeah.
but I have baggage with it, so that's on me.
I get that. I understand that though. Because it's everything is about these expectations we have with stuff, and it's like all of it's unconscious unless you actually like address it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I'm finding that with a lot of media I take in is like if I'm going into something with some kind of expectation, I'm either let down or like I like when the best feeling is when you expect something and it goes beyond, right? That's what I
Yes,
want. That's
absolutely.
that's a feeling I want. So I'm thinking maybe I need to just like cut the expectations back and just like take stuff as it is. I think I'll enjoy stuff way more that way, but I think I'm so critical too because I want to like certain things, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate like a very slice of something, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't want to like everything. I want to like very particular cool stuff that I gravitate to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I like I have friends that are like, if I like one thing a band or a filmmaker does, they got me forever. And I'm not like that. Where like I don't know, like there's just at some point it's like I like this stuff, and the rest of the stuff I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not criticizing anyone else, but like I just recognize that for whatever reason, this slice
Yeah.
is that was my slice, and it's cool. Other people get it,
You know what the
ultimately.
slice is though? I realize is the slice is when people are still figuring it out. I think the best stuff is the
Yeah.
rawest early stuff when they're not the professionals. They don't know what they're doing. They're taking risks because they don't even know it's a risk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's the stuff I like. So I often find that I really, really gravitate towards like, especially filmmakers, like their first couple movies. I don't know how it is with comics. I'm still kind of like I have a massive comic collection and I have my favorite comic writers and creators. But like when it comes to like looking at the trajectory of comic writers' careers, and like I have such a mind for it for movies because it's just like been part of my world for so long that comics I don't have mapped out yet. But films, I find that like the earliest stuff is like the best stuff. And it might not even be their first film, but it's probably their second or third is like their
Mm-hmm.
best thing they're gonna do. And then they get comfortable, they get used to it, they have their techniques. I think of David Fincher a lot with this example. I think his first couple movies, Alien 3 is his first movie, I think. And it's not great. I don't love it.
I
But then
hate it. I want to like it so much. I rewatch it every couple of years, hoping one day.
Pish Posh, who care? Like we could leave it alone and never touch it again and we'll all be better for it. But then his next three movies, Seven, The Game, Fight Club, it's just
Dude.
like, oh my God, dude. And then, whatever else he does after that, I don't care. Benjamin Button, whatever, Gone Girl, who cares? And I know he's never going to get back there. and that's fine. He grew as a creator,
Yeah,
and his stuff became super mainstream. But like, man, that slice of those three, it's
dude, the
just like
game. I mean, all three of those, but the game I feel like is the outlier because a lot of people I find don't know that movie,
the
and
game.
it. I I, I mean, all three. I love all three of those. A seven is one where it's like it is so disturbing to me that I'm very careful with how I watch it and how like I don't watch it often because
Yeah,
it
it's
isn't like I
so gnarly. It's gnarly.
and but also like the script for that though is so unbelievable because if you think about the mechanics of how it gets to where it's going, and it's like, okay, you got the killer doing seven deadly sins, and then he turns himself in, and
Mhm.
then that is, starts the chain that then gets you to it's just nobody could have written that movie except
No, it's
that guy. I
I
forget the
think
name of the
Andrew Kevin Walker, or
yes, yeah. I
is that
think
his name?
that's
I
it.
think that's his name.
Um
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that is uh, uh what it is. Like those three movies each touch on something, and they go really hard, and they're really stylized. Uh, I feel like they all are like these like little perfect movies that he was just jumping to. Like I think the game should be a TV series because I think there's so much more to do with the
oh,
game that I don't know why that's just like shelved. Like, why are you guys remaking like everything under the sun except for the stuff that could be interesting to remake? Like,
or to expand, just
yeah,
expand it, it's
yeah.
like
Oh, give me. I think you could have a new game, and I think you could have fun with twisting the audience's expectations because they know it's a game and see where you can go. I don't think you could do it forever, but I think a limited series on that would
yeah.
be extraordinary. I think it would be so fun, you know?
I agree. I'd never thought of that before. It's Andrew Kevin Walker, and man, that
Andrew Kevin
is
Walker.
just.
Yeah.
But I
And
mean,
Fight Club though too. I
oh,
know I'm not supposed to
it's
talk about it, but it's that's my favorite movie. That's the movie that I actually it clicked in my brain that that's a you can make movies.
right.
That was the one that told me you can make this stuff. And I almost couldn't get through Fight Club. I put it on and I got to the part where Ed Norton is reading the IKEA magazine on the toilet. And I'm like, this is the worst movie ever. And I think I stopped it twice. And then by the third time, I actually watched it. And then I had to rewatch it again afterwards because it followed through on its punch and it knocked me the
Yeah.
fuck out, And I just always love it for that because like the score, the Dust Brothers, like
Oh,
every element was clicking. I don't care if it's so much about like I know it's like toxic masculinity. Oh, if you like Fight Club, I don't care about that stuff. I think it's a perfect film. I think what he's doing with the characters is the twist. The twist got me, and I'm glad it did. It's fun when you can have those moments with movies,
yeah. Yeah,
but
I
it's
know. I
hard.
totally
It's
agree.
hard. It's so hard now because people have seen everything and they're
Yeah.
so desensitized to certain things, and it's tricky. It's hard. It's hard to make movies now.
Yeah. I mean, and people have seen so much, and I mean, stuff like that. That movie's just zeitgeist. It just encapsulates a certain time in pop culture just because of like literature, movies, music, and like the toxic masculinity, like it's an indictment of toxic masculinity. So
Yeah,
there's that
it
thing
is.
now,
It is.
there's a thing now where like the example I always use is someone says, like for example, first season of True Detective, I remember somebody being like, it is just so misogynistic, and I'm like, okay, so by that standard, then Schindler's List is a pro-Nazi movie. If you're going to talk about something that happened that's terrible, you kind of gotta talk about it. Right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
like you can't not. So
Yeah.
yeah, like this
There's
is
this.
about toxic masculinity, but that's because that if you pay attention, Fight Club is a 100% indictment of that. It
Yeah,
just
and it's
it
it's not nearly as violent as people think it is either. Like I remember people saying like, if you read some of the reviews from '99, it's just like, oh, it's the most violent movie ever. They show like three fights in the movie, barely. It's like, come on, man. That
you know,
movie got dragged.
you know what it is about that movie that scares people, I think? The scene where they take that guy at the convenience store outside, put the gun in his fucking head, and he says, "What do you want to be? a veterinarian. If I'm going to come back here, and if you're not on your way, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
that is actually, it's there's because he's not wrong. He's wrong for doing it. I'm not endorsing that he does it, but he's not wrong. So,
but then the gun's not loaded, so it's that extra little moment that even the narrator addresses that, where he's like, Tyler's going too far, but like, I see what he's doing because it shows that gun not loaded. It's I love it. I love it so much. I think it's so fantastic. I think it's funny. I think it's hysterical. Like, if you could read it, it's really, really a funny movie.
I agree.
The beats and the pacing is just like outrageous. Like it's these guys are just like so in sync with each other on that one. And I don't know, people aren't really talking about that movie a lot anymore. I don't hear that movie come up. But I think that's like a touchstone. Like,
oh yeah, and I remember, just like you, like I remember not seeing it in the theater. Some friends were going to go, and I'm like, "What, the movie about the guys that like take their shirts off and beat each other up? No thanks." Yeah. It comes out on video, and the same friends are like, "How have you not seen this yet?" And we sit down and watch it, and at some point, I just completely no longer lucid watching this movie inside of it, and then I'm like, this is Cobra. This is what? Oh my God! This is when it becomes this like terrorist organization, but
yes,
but actually, like, you get into this again, like, but they're not, like, what they're saying isn't, so it's a really hard thing for people to deal with, and it creates a cognitive dissonance that people, I think, makes a lot of people really uncomfortable. So they just don't want to. They want to dismiss it or call it violent or whatever, but man.
So the Project Mayhem stuff I love, and what I want to do next with Popscars is kind of little Project Mayhem stuff a bit.
Oh, nice.
I think it's not so much about revenge on like this character, and it takes such a long time. I think it will be more like little missions and kind of stuff like that a little bit.
That's pretty cool, man.
The Project Mayhem stuff is awesome, and it's like at the tail end of the movie, and like you don't get quite enough of it.
No, it is just. I'll never forget that realization where I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what this is. I'm so happy that you made me sit down and watch this fucking movie. Yeah, I was so happy.
Yeah, it's special.
It really is. Okay, I'm glad you brought it back around to Popscars, because